Cookie, you're enjoying Gavin Newsom's anti-Trump social media stuff? Okay, so I guess he can count on your vote in 2028. Oh, hey everybody, welcome back. It's been a while to J-L's book club where we don't talk about Fight Club, the book, because we didn't read Fight Club, the book. Last month I took off inadvertently because I was in the midst of reading. Was it the longest book I've ever read? You know, War and Peace has often been the cliched, hacky, the same way if somebody tricks you, you go, am I being punked, even though the show hasn't been on for what feels like 20 years? War and Peace has always been the go-to, like, what is this, War and Peace? You know, I've never read War and Peace, and I don't think I've ever used that, but you get what I'm saying. Well, this month I would like to offer a new alternative. What is this? Ron Chernow's Mark Twain? This is the book I read. Now, a Chernow biography, before I became, sort of arguably America's foremost book critic, I used to just read for pleasure, not for content. And a Ron Chernow biography is usually a 6-week endeavor for me. I remember reading Grant, and that took me about 6 weeks. But Mark Twain was a solid 8 weeks. And so I couldn't review anything last month. I thought I would get through it. I thought if I'm real diligent, 1 month is good enough. But it wasn't. It was 2 months, and it was almost 2 full months. So we'll get to the book in a second. But as always, we have a beverage of the month. And this month, our sponsor is, I like cans like this. It makes me feel like Andre the Giant. Like, I'll just be like, this is actually a tall boy. That's just how much of a monster I am. But this month it's Blue Bottle Coffee. Bright, cold brew coffee. My cinematographer likes Blue Bottle Coffee. And when it comes to coffee, I'm more of a, well, this is garbage. Or, that was fine. I'm not a, oh, this is good coffee. I'm more of a, when I have a cup of coffee on Amtrak, I'm like, this is dog shit. And then I have a normal cup of coffee and I go, this is fine. And then I have a cup of Starbucks coffee and I go, why do these beans have to be burned to a crisp before you make coffee, Starbucks? I'll have a tea instead. So let's get into it. Mark Twain by Ron Chernow. Interestingly enough, I bought it sight unseen because this was I haven't read House of Morgan, but I have it. But of the Chernow bookography, I have, library might be the word for a ography of books. I've read Washington, Hamilton, Titan, it's big into the one words, Grant. So this is my 5th Chernow experience, and I do want to do a sketch. I may not, because I'm starting to see a deeper futility in creating comedy or any work of any kind. But I do want to do a sketch, theoretically, about a gym where the only weights are Ron Chernow books. And if I'm tired right now, it's because I was at a Lady Gaga concert last night. Or the world's most obnoxious pride parade. I don't know. We'll talk about that on Rain on Your Parade. But I want to do a gym where Mark Twain would be the highest level when the weightlifter is chalking up, going for their personal best. This would be the highest level. This would be the biggest weight in the gym. When I bought it, like I said, it's the 6th Chernow book I own, 5th that I've read. I don't really need to consult the reviews. I've enjoyed the biographies of his. He's won a National Book Award. He's won a Pulitzer. Very big-time historical biographer. And then the New York Times review came out. Now, I don't like to cite inferior book review products, but I will this one time and cite the New York Times book review. The reviewer of Mark Twain by Ron Chernow, it read like his wife had fucked Ron Chernow. that on their honeymoon. That's how harsh the review was. Not just any time, honeymoon. And that, as my brother had said to me, he was like, well, sometimes when a 4-star restaurant has a bad review, the review is 10 times worse than it would have been if you were not expected to have a 4-star meal. So it may have been just that my expectations were for another Ron Chernow classic, and this reviewer was like, you have betrayed me. This B- book feels like an F. How dare you? It was the harshest review I've ever read in the New York Times book review. It was on the cover. It was basically like, Ron Chernow done fucked up, was like the title of the article. So I got into it and I said, well, maybe I can do better than the New York Times. And it's a chore. Okay? This book is a chore. When I read Grant, which was a very tidy, like 800 pages, or 770 pages or something, I never got to a point in the book where I was like, well, we can wrap it up here, right? There seemed to be always, it helps when you are a general in the Civil War and then your second act is as president. But with Twain, it felt like, who, by the way, not related to Shania Twain. That was one of the disappointments I had in the book. I was like, what do you mean his line ended in 1966? What? That don't impress me much. So I'm going to read you a passage to sort of break up the review, to give you an example of what I'm talking about. Okay, so here we go. First passage from second Chernow, verse 5 million to 5 million 5. Even at the time, Twain's fellow writers expressed appreciation for the book. His friend Robert Louis Stevenson, who read it 4 times, said it contained many excellent things. Above all, the whole story of a healthy boy's dealing with his conscience. Incredibly well done. Not until the 20th century was the novel granted a seminal place in American letters, with H.L. Mencken describing Huck Finn, obviously, as a truly stupendous piece of work, perhaps the greatest novel ever written in English, and christening Twain as the true father of our national literature, the first genuinely American artist of the blood royal. Perhaps the most influential appraisal came from Ernest Hemingway, who observed succinctly that all modern American literature comes from one book by Mark Twain called Huckleberry Finn. My own personal add to this, if Hemingway had read then this biography, he would have blown his brains out sooner. I'm exaggerating for humor. The reason I bring that passage up, you're like, J-L, that doesn't seem to be funny or illustrative of anything. It's on page 341. There's 700 more pages after Huck Finn. That's my point. Is like Grant, as an example, oh wow, he's the general. He saves the Union. He's like the 4th choice, but ends up being, as Lincoln said, paraphrasing his quote, I like Grant because he fights. And then we get him as president, and with corruption, and then in poverty, and then having to, the Chernow cinematic universe, guess who writes Grant's biography when he's old and destitute and needs some money? Mark Twain. So it does come like in an after credits sequence, if I can talk about books like they're Marvel movies to get more people interested. It's like the credits roll, and then all of a sudden, Grant is at a desk, and you're like, what a great movie. What's this? What's this in the post-credits? And Mark Twain walks in, and he's like, how'd you like to write a biography? And then people go, what? There's going to be a sequel. And then at the end it says, you will see more of Grant in Mark Twain, summer 2026. So the reason I bring that up is that I was like, oh, well, some big shit must happen to Twain if we're hitting one peak with 700 pages to go. And we really don't. That's sort of my bother. Now, the big revelation for Ron Chernow in this book, every generation has their R. Kelly. And I think what Chernow is suggesting through the final 200 pages of the book is that Twain is a platonic literary R. Kelly. Okay? He writes in the name of love, if you know what I mean. And so I'm going to read a passage, but this seemed to be the big thing. The chapter is called Angelfish, which is his name for his prepubescent girl squad. okay? As a speaker, Twain was making, this is page 833, so still 200 pages left. As a speaker, Twain was making the rounds of female colleges and openly rejoiced in the company of the students. Canceled. He knew how to present himself as a lovable old codger. When he spoke at Barnard College, he told Paine, "Girls are charming creatures. I shall have to be twice 70 years old before I change my mind as to that." The day after his Barnard talk, while Isabel tended Jean, his daughter, whose initials, by the way, were JLC, and also just a side note, Mark Twain, not only hilarious, talented, truly miserable, lived in Riverdale, what's now known as Wave Hill, which is about a mile from where I grew up. I think you know what I'm getting at, okay? Sometimes us comedic, artistic geniuses tend to be fucking assholes. The day after his Barnard talk, while Isabel tended Jean, he went off for a ride with 3 Barnard students. Clearly, Twain found nothing dark or shameful about these liaisons, admitting, "I have the college girl habit." He was deliriously happy when he addressed a Vassar benefit and mingled with 500 college girls, almost all young and lovely, untouched by care, unfaded by age. So basically the Dan Blazarian of American letters. Just look him up. He's a fucking social media creep. The next day, the World ran a story. Mark Twain was wreathed in girls and quoted his announcement that henceforth in his lectures, "I shall only talk to audiences of college girls. I have labored for the public good for many years, and now I am going to talk for my own contentment." So if you ever see me doing a comedy tour of women's colleges, maybe I've just hit my Twain point of being like, I'm tired of the YouTube comments. Gertrude Natkin was, there's a name from the late 1800s, was the first of at least a dozen girls who Twain would soon honor as angelfish in his aquarium club, his club of hand-picked platonic sweethearts, a passionate endeavor that would become all-consuming. Sort of like freak-offs minus the freakishness. If Twain, that's me adding, that wasn't what Chernow wrote. If Twain thrashed himself with guilt about many things, he never had regrets about the angelfish. Far from being ashamed, he was positively proud of this development and posed with the girls for the press. People regarded this not as the sinister hobby of a lecherous old pedophile, but as the charming eccentricity of a sentimental old widower. In a more innocent age, the public found the behavior quaint and endearing. And basically he goes on about this kind of like, it was weird, and he said he was not a grandfather, so he wanted this, and Chernow was like, but why no boys in the group then? Why this particular obsession with like 12-year-old, 10-year-old, 14-year-old girls, who he would then lose interest with as they hit womanhood? And no accusations of improper touching or anything crossing a line in that respect. But it seems that, right or wrong, Chernow is very insistent on this. Like, this occupies like the last 18% of the book, kind of. And so it's that, I guess, I don't know, did that count as a revelation in the book, or is that like kind of not a revisionist history, but like I'd like to look at Mark Twain not just as a literary giant, but through our modern eyes of Me Too and things like that. It comes off as like slightly creepy, but this is like an age where, you know, a 29-year-old man could come courting your 15-year-old daughter, I feel like. So I don't know that it's like necessarily like, what the hell? But it took a long time to read, and not everybody, you know, I mean, it's a impressive endeavor as far as 1,033 pages on Mark Twain. I think this book may be longer than all of Mark Twain's writings put together, which is impressive. But, you know, the lesson I'm left with is Mark Twain, you know, was kind of miserable, very funny, miserable, talented, especially when his wife died. And it's one of those things, you see his life as this kind of like, his legacy is his writing. And because his only grandchild died childless and possibly by suicide in the 1960s. And you sit there and you go, wow, Twain, his wife died. 3 of his 4 children died before he did. But it was probably all worth it because he's Mark Twain. So you can't make a literary genius omelet without breaking most of your family eggs, I think is the lesson I'm supposed to take from this. So I would recommend so many Chernow books. I'm not doing the New York Times thing where I'm like, Ron Chernow should be publicly whipped and executed for this book. I mean, that's how harsh the Times review was. But, this was 2 months of my life. And don't know that I needed to dedicate it to Mark Twain and every minute issue of his life ever. I did read the critically acclaimed book by, I think it was David Blight, who's a Yale historian, on Frederick Douglass. And that was also felt more like an academic chore, a worthwhile academic chore, but that is a critically acclaimed biography. And I felt that too was like, well, I know every breakfast Frederick Douglass ever had. That's how it felt. This is that and then some. So interesting, could have been half as long maybe. It just feels like it really hammers any new revelations. It's really, I don't know. I don't recommend it. It's not a bad book, but it's a lot of your fucking life spent reading this book. In the grand scheme of whatever time we have left, this is a lot. So that's your review this week. But it's expensive and gigantic. So there are 2 other reasons maybe not to get it. But for next month, I don't know if I'm reviewing at least 2 books. That's a fact. Don't know if I will do them in 2 separate episodes because I technically owe you an episode for July, but 17 of you watch these on Patreon, so I don't want to take you guys for granted, but is it really worth it for me to pump out an extra one for you not to really watch? But the 2 books I will be reviewing, whether they be in 1 episode or 2, the first is a new one called Bad Company, not about the group Bad Company, whose hit single Bad Company was featured on their debut album, Bad Company. But this is Bad Company, Private Equity and the Death of the American Dream. And I thought, that is the palate cleanser I need after Chernow. That's the pick-me-up I need. So this got a good review in the Times, and I'll be reading this. And another book that got a good review in the Times that seems a little on point with my big review from a couple of months ago of There Is No Place for Us, Dwelling. This is a brand new novel, also well-reviewed, about basically the housing crisis. It's kind of a surrealist, I think, novel about the housing crisis. So those will be your 2 books for next month. And for Rain on Your Parade fans, this probably won't be an official review here, but I will be, as I continue to sort of, for some reason, think I have something to offer society in terms of comedy or commentary. I want to talk about Bitcoin and crypto, hopefully with Anthony Scaramucci on Rain on Your Parade. So I'm reading 2 additional books this month, and all 4 of these books add up to fewer pages than Mark Twain by Ron Chernow. But one is called Number Go Up, Inside Crypto's Wild Rise and Staggering Fall. I think this was written right before crypto made a comeback because the corrupt crypto king, Donald Trump, became president. So that's never really a reason to believe that, oh, no. Crypto's legit now. The biggest criminal we've ever produced is totally behind it. But so be it. So Number Go Up. And then, as a counter, The Little Book of Bitcoin by Anthony Scaramucci. So I'll get my Bitcoin knowledge from both ends of the, I'll be like a human centipede of Bitcoin knowledge. So this might just be for Rain on Your Parade, but these will also be books that I'm reading this month. I just like to brag that I'm going to read like a book a week this week because, once you get out of that Chernow trench, it's open fields of running. So thank you for watching this. If you did, if you didn't, what the hell are you doing? And that's it. So we'll be back in September with another episode of J-L's Book Club. And until then, remember, documentary. It's been a while, folks. I'm forgetting my own catchphrase. How dare I? Remember, folks, books, they're like documentaries for smart people.